Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining our TeleTownHall to gather community input on priorities for the next Chief of Police. My name is Steve Walker, and I have the honor of serving as the Director of the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments. Today is one of several opportunities community members have to share their feedback, thoughts, and priorities as Mayor Bowser continues to search for the next leader of the Metropolitan Police Department. If you're watching now on the DC network and want to share your thoughts, comments, and questions, please dial 1-844-881-1314. That's 1-844-881-1314. If you're watching us on one of the social networks and have questions and comments, please share it in the comment section and we'll get to as many of those comments as we can tonight. Before I introduce the panel, I also want to remind residents that you have another opportunity to share your thoughts, ideas, and feedback on the next Chief of Police by going to dcchiefofpolicesearch.dc.gov, where you can learn more about the search and also share your thoughts on the community survey. And now let me introduce today's panel, who will receive your feedback and answer questions and comments from you. Kevin Donahue is the City Administrator of the District of Columbia, and Lindsay Appiah, the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice. As I prepare to hand over to Kevin, I want to again provide the number so residents can call in and share their questions and comments. 844-881-1314, and press 0 to be loaded into the queue. And now I'll turn it over to the City Administrator, Kevin Donahue.
Thank you, Director Walker, and good evening to everyone who's joined us tonight. I'm Kevin Donahue, the City Administrator. I want to welcome everyone participating in this telephone town hall on a really important matter to all of us, the search for a new Chief of Police of the Metropolitan Police Department. We look forward to hearing from you, our district residents, as we go forward on our collective journey. As many of you know, we bid farewell to our former police chief, Robert Conti, who served at MPD for more than 30 years. And I know for me, over the past 8.5 years, being involved in serving the mayor and the city in searches for cabinet members has been among the most meaningful work that I do, because I know that that one decision will affect our communities for years to come. The position of Chief of Police at MPD is one of great responsibility, especially it's because it's a big organization with 4,000 employees, more than 3,000 officers, which makes it one of the largest police forces in the nation. And one of the most important nominations for Mayor Bowser. We want to find a dedicated public servant who will elevate our goals of keeping our residents safe, tackling crime, reflecting our values, and holding those who harm our communities accountable. And it's a critical time because the size of MPD is falling in terms of the number of officers that serve there, and the demand for their time is increasing. This means we need a visionary and effective leader. So we want to hear from you and let us know what you think we should consider in terms of the criteria we should use in our search. We want to know your recommendations, your thoughts, and encourage you to have respectful and thoughtful conversation with us that can help us shape the criteria we use to look at candidates who've expressed interest in the role. And most of all, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, calling, and contributing to a safer, stronger DC. Now, as Director Walker said, remember to dial 1-844-881-1314, press 0 to enter the queue, and I'm going to hand it over to the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Lindsay Appiah, who will present a snapshot of our community survey results. Lindsay?
Thank you so much, City Administrator. As the City Administrator said, I'm Lindsay Appiah, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice. It is exciting and an honor to be with you all in this teletown hall format. You, as our residents, as our visitors, as all of the different people who are on the phone with us, are the reason we do this as public servants. So hearing your voice is deeply important to us. And so certainly as the Chief of Police, our Chief of Police plays a critical role in advancing public safety in our city, and particularly helping to advance the priorities that the mayor has set for us. And so we're going to talk a bit about those priorities, as well as some of what we've heard from you already. And so our goal across government is to create a safer, stronger DC. And these are the priorities that the mayor has laid out. We must reduce crime, and particularly gun violence and juvenile crime. We have to ensure that our residents across all 8 wards and our visitors are safe. We have to ensure that victims of violence violent crime experience justice, and that those who harm our community are held accountable. And so certainly the process of choosing a new chief of police is a critical part of advancing these key priorities the mayor has laid out. And a key part, the mayor has said there are really two primary things she's looking for in a chief of police: a leader and a crime fighter. And so the current state of the Metropolitan Police Department is that we have a diminished force. We have lower numbers than we've had in a long time. And so that does not mean that our Metropolitan Police Department's responsibility and charge lowers. And so our next chief, will have the responsibility of making sure that we're still keeping our residents safe while also working to build up our force. Our mayor has said we need 4,000 officers, and our new chief will play a critical role in helping us to get there. Another role that our next chief will play is to help lead the Metropolitan Police Department towards meeting the agency's key strategic priorities. And those priorities are focused law enforcement. We want to be intelligent in our policing. We want to make sure that we are policing in a way that is fair and equitable and just. We want a Metropolitan Police Department that engages in impactful community engagement. It is deeply important to us as our residents that our relationship between all of our officers and all of our residents is strong. And so our police chief will play a key role in setting that type of priority and that type of expectation for our officers. We want innovative infrastructure and being really at the forefront of thinking about what's next in policing. What does 21st century policing really look like? And we want an engaged workforce. We know that our officers are working hard and they are working long. And so it's deeply important to us that our chief play the key role in helping us to cultivate a healthy workforce. We want mentally, physically, emotionally healthy officers and civilian staff at the Metropolitan Police Department. And so that's some of the priorities that we've been looking for as we've been engaged in this search. And we've heard from some of you. Like we said, it's deeply important to us to hear your voices. And many of you have weighed in and made those voices heard. And so here's a bit about the community survey, where we are. Survey opened May 30th, and we've heard from hundreds upon hundreds of residents across the district. And there is still time for you to weigh in if you haven't had a chance yet. The survey will close tomorrow at noon. So please, 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 if you haven't yet taken the survey, please do so. And you can see on the screen that you can do that at dcchiefofpolicesearch.dc.gov. And so let's talk a little bit about what we've heard. Here's some of what we've seen. We have heard from residents across all 8 wards. We've heard from residents of all ages, of genders, both male, female, non-binary. So we have a true snapshot of the District of Columbia. And so what are some of the things that we're hearing from you? What are some of the priorities that you have said are critically important for our next chief? Well, many of you who have weighed in have said that we need a leader who can communicate and advocate for a policy environment that promotes public safety. The mayor often says and talks about our public safety and justice ecosystem, and that while we certainly in the executive, it's important that we execute good programs and good policing, it's also deeply important that we have a policy environment that promotes safety. And so you have certainly agreed with that in heavy percentages, that's an important part of what our next chief will do. And there's a whole host of other things you've said, that we want someone who has a proven ability to use innovative strategies to drive down violent crime. Like we talked about, one of MPD's key strategic priorities is reimagining policing, right? Being innovative. And the city administrator often talks about, when he was in my seat, that one of the things that he came to appreciate was the need for creativity in our police chief and in our police force. And so I believe that those numbers prove that you all agree that we need to be creative and need a chief who leads the Metropolitan Police Department that way. And, someone who has held leadership before. Like the mayor has said, we need a leader. And so that's what we're looking for. And so I think that what this demonstrates is that much of what you're saying is what we know to be true. We do need a leader and a crime fighter. And so we're excited to hear from more of you. There's still an opportunity for you to weigh in if you haven't yet in the survey, but we now want to turn and we want to hear your voices. We want to know, what do you believe is important in our next chief, and what should we be considering as we continue this process together?
Great. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. We're excited to hear from many residents today. And I again want to put the number out so everyone can have it: 1-844-881-1314. And please press 0 to be added to the queue. And again, if you're watching us on the social media channels, please put your questions in the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. First, we have online Sarah from Ward 3. And her question is, to the Deputy Mayor and the City Administrator, what qualities are most important to the mayor as she selects the next chief of police?
So I mentioned a couple of them that the mayor said consistently, that in our chief of police, we need a leader. The Metropolitan Police Department is 3,300 sworn officers, but also over 4,000 total employees. And so with where we are in public safety, with the mayor being very clear that making sure that our residents are safe and feel safe, it's critically important that we have a chief who understands what it looks like to lead an organization of that size, to be laser focused on reducing crime and making sure that our residents are safe and feel safe. The other thing that plays into that the mayor said is a crime fighter. And that what you saw in the survey results is that our residents agree that across our city, it's deeply important that everybody is safe. And so obviously MPD plays a key role in implementing law enforcement strategies to help to lead to safety, and also plays a key role across our ecosystem, whether it's in our prevention space, with our other federal partners, in our rehabilitation with our returning citizens or otherwise, and helping to lead us to think about how we can also prevent crime. And so those are two key things the mayor has said. And also the mayor is very clear with all of us that we serve our residents. And so we have, it's been a priority for our officers to engage with our community in meaningful ways. And that's the expectation of the mayor. And so in looking for the next chief, making sure that meaningful community engagement is occurring, and that we have a leader who understands and encourages and leads our police force to really be at the forefront of community outreach and engagement, because that's as important to us as them simply engaging in policing strategies and tactics.
And I'll just add, the leadership qualities for the chief of police is something that's probably, to me, is the most complex question to really assess possible candidates. So how leadership manifests is different depending on the setting. The chief of police for MPD has to lead in a community that may be feeling scared, feeling terrorized, and they want to understand what a plan is for going forward. A leader of an organization with a shrinking force, which is different if you're leading an organization that has 4,000 officers, has 4,200 officers. During the 3 years of Chief Conti, we saw a reduction in the size of MPD that was seen nationally and also felt locally. So it's leading an organization that has gone through a lot over the past several years, who has worked a long number of hours, who's lost some of their coworkers to COVID, but had to show up every day and work through it. And that's a particular type of leader. And in DC, what's unique is we are also the home of our federal government. So it's also leading an organization that will be called upon to assist the Capitol Police at the Capitol, assist the Park Police for events on Park Service land, have to go to congressional hearings, as Chief Conti did last month, and testify about what we're doing to keep the city safe. And those are qualities that are really unique to DC. And so the mayor looks for a leader who can lead effectively in all the settings that he or she will be pressed to show leadership qualities in difficult circumstances.
Great. Thank you very much for that question. I just want to remind everyone, please, if you're online, dial 1-844-881-1314, and don't forget to press 0 to be loaded into the queue. Our next question is going to come from Vanilla Crawford. Can you please tell us what ward and then ask your question or comment?
Hi, yes, thank you for the opportunity. I am a senior ambassador, one of many in the city, and I just want to share a couple of observations and an idea for the type of leadership in our next police chief. So one of the things that I think would contribute greatly to the communication on the streets in the city is that we have some older police officers, and I know we need energetic people to run and chase down folks, but we also need a mindset on the street that is maybe a bit more reflective of maturity and wisdom. That's one thing. I think the other thing is that we start looking at more proactive things. I remember when I was in high school, when I was in junior high school, we had officer friendly, and that was a way to talk with young folk and establish camaraderie with them so that they felt confident and safe. And the seniors and the older people and so forth on the street also felt a sense of safety. One of the other concern that I'm making a request that we hire a chief who is able to speak to not just the young people who we kind of stereotype as criminals in the city, but also to speak with seniors who have concerns and fears about safety, but who also want to use their time to work with some of these youth and to be a vital source for the police chief, so that this person who is the police chief can talk to the seniors and gather information from them and do it routinely, like, so that there's a regular community chief conversation.
Great, thank you.
I have a lot of ideas. That's just a few.
Thank you very much for sharing. Deputy Mayor or City Administrator, any reflection?
Sure. I mean, we often say, right, like our seniors, like our residents of all ages are deeply important to us. And so, but certainly our seniors are very, very important, and your feeling of safety is deeply important to us. So we value, one of the things that we do is have senior officers, right? Like, because we do believe that there's a wisdom and a mentorship that can come from officers who may be further along in their career or more senior. And so absolutely having, it's important that we have a workforce at Metropolitan Police Department that reflects our city. And that means having officers with some more seasoning. And so definitely take that to heart. And officer friendly, when we talk about community engagement, it's very important that our chief lead our officers to engage in all sorts of different ways, from patrol, right, like being actually known in the neighborhood, to school resource officers who are in schools and who are able to build relationship with young people, right, to our special operations divisions who engage with different of our communities, right? Like in a very diverse and multi-ethnic and racial and every sort of type of people you can imagine here in the district. And so absolutely it's important for our chief to be able to engage across the age spectrum and all of the really things that make our city really rich.
And I like the comment about the older officers. So a data point that I would often look at, I still look at, but I looked at when I was the deputy mayor, is the number of officers who at any given point can retire. They've served enough years to retire. They often don't when they first become eligible to retire because they love their community, they love what they do. It's also very taxing work. So the other idea is just having, as you said, an officer who knows how to connect to older officers. They're often our best officers, and we actually want them staying on the job as long as they're fit, able, and engaged, and that is typically well past when they become eligible for retirement. And as the deputy mayor said, we do have a program to bring back officers who have retired, have clean disciplinary records, and there is a time when we expanded that to also include officers who were detectives and effective at closing cases. And your idea reminds me of looking at whether we can further expand that program, so if retired detectives for MPD are out there, we can more easily bring them back, and probably some retired school resource officers who left when they thought their numbers are going to be reduced by legislation. That has now been reversed. So we have the ability to have school resource officers, which is the closest thing we have to officer friendly, in schools, and those that are recently retired maybe have a chance to come back. So thank you.
Great, and thank you again for that question. And for everyone else online, don't forget to press 0 if you're already dialed in. And if you haven't dialed in, 844-881-1314. We're going to go to our next question now. It's Lonnie from Ward 8. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Hi there. This is Lori Furstenberg from Ward 8.
My
Thank
apologies.
you very much. And thank you, Sophia, for pushing me through. So I just wanted to make sure that I reiterate what I think that I heard the officials say at the beginning of the call, was that we're looking for a strong police force, a fair, equitable, and just force, a healthy force, and our new chief, a proven record to drive down crime, and a healthy police force. I think I already said that. Is that correct? Did I hear all that correct?
You did.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So with all of that, with DC's crime, so here's my question. With DC's crime crisis, homicides so far this year are exceeding 100. There have been 369 carjackings so far this year, at least 3 missing children per day, not to mention the fare evasion issues, the homeless and drug problems, and the retirement of Chief Conte. I'm asking why the mayor has not formally requested of the president temporary deployment of the DC National Guard to provide temporary assistance for the police so they can do all of the aforementioned that you all said that is so important to DC.
City Administrator.
First of all, thank you for listing out just those traits. I think you were saying back to us even more effectively what I think you heard in terms of just, fair, healthy police force, proven track record. Now, the question about the National Guard comes up from time to time for a long time. And a couple of things. So first of all, the National Guard is deployed in unique and special circumstances. They often are deployed to be able to carry out tasks that allow police to be freed up to focus on policing tasks. The National Guard isn't trained or equipped to really be the police force. They can sometimes staff posts to be able to block traffic if that's needed. But their mission is really focused on a narrow set of very important activities. And our National Guard for DC is also not, I think, as large in size when it comes to the number of folks that really are trained to be able to work alongside MPD. They're very effective when MPD calls upon them for dedicated missions. It doesn't have the size or training to be able to sustain the kind of things that they will do when they are deployed to typically free police up to be in neighborhoods and staff policing. So it's something I think many mayors have looked at, is just not a force with the size or capability that meets, I think, what sometimes people think it could do if we're deployed at stretches to help an urban police force like MPD.
Thank you very much for that question. Again, I want to remind callers, if you're already on the line, press 0 to be loaded into the queue. If you're watching us on the DC network, please dial 844-881-1314 and press 0 to be loaded into the queue. Our next question is from Ingra Lewis, who's in Ward 8.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Ingrid Lewis, and I'm representing Ward 8. And so my question is, I would like to know, when the new chief of police is hired, will he or she be able to do their job effectively as they know how, or will their hands be tied because of the rules that the council members have set and then the things that the mayor put in place? I feel like we're trying to appease the community more than really protect the community. I've lived in Ward 8 for over 30 years, and for the first time in my life, I fear for my life every day. And I'm a homeowner in this city and have been for a very long time. So I want to know what's going to change when we get the new chief of police.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor? I'm sorry. We're joined by Mayor Bowser. Mayor, do you want to?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Pia and City Administrator Donahue, and for all who have tuned in or are watching us on Channel 16 for your questions. We are certainly very interested in what you have to say and the qualities that you expect in the next great police chief of the Metropolitan Police Department. I was listening in my office and I heard Deputy Mayor Pia already talk about what I think is most important is that we have a leader and we have a person who is committed to driving down crime in the district. And that seems like it goes without saying, but I think that the caller identifies an important point. That leader has to be able to also be the chief advocate for a policy environment that's conducive to policing and public safety. And we have experienced over the last several years, in my view, a swing away from a policy environment that is focused on fighting crime, making sure the police have the tools that they need, and making sure that people who aren't following the rules are held accountable. And so part of that will be the chief of police job, the police chief's job. And that's my job, that's the community's job, and that's the council's job. And we are committed to all working together. But that speaks to a unique individual that is an experienced crime fighter, but is a seasoned leader and communicator and negotiator on very complicated issues and all of the issues aren't always black and white. There's a lot of nuance into crafting the environment that we need and implementing the strategies that we need. So when I hear a person from Ward 8 or from any place in the district that says that they fear for their own public safety, for their personal property, and the enjoyment of their lives, then it's no doubt that public safety remains our number one issue, and being very committed to finding the right person, supporting that person, supporting the men and women of the police department remains our top priority. So we are also encouraged by the comments that we're getting from the community and the individuals who are interested in this job.
Great. Thank you very much for that question. As a reminder, please dial 844-881-1314 and press 0 to be loaded into the queue. Our next question comes from Jasmine in Ward 7. Go ahead, Jasmine. We can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, what was going to be the difference between a new police chief, the crime in the district, and the real problem that we're having? What we're having is a financial epidemic in the poorer communities in D.C. The minimum wage is gone up. However, it's still fairly low. The economics in the minority communities east of the river, Ward 7, Ward 8, children are not graduating. The educators are not educating. We're not grasping our children's attention, right? The minimum wage is so low that people have to work 3 and 4 jobs that they're not able to raise their children to make ends meet. The economy is rising on the poor minority communities in D.C. and across the country, but prominently in D.C. because the whole world watches us. So while the whole world is watching our youth rob and carjack and kill us, everyone else is doing it. They're following suit. Whatever D.C. does, everyone else is going to do. Our children are not graduating. Our mothers are not able to feed families with $16.10 $17. Anything under $25, $20, $24 is really a slap in the face to the people of the district. If you single out a whole group of people,
Well,
eventually
Jasmine,
they're
let
gonna
me
snap.
let me jump
So
in.
I want
Can I jump in and start to answer your question? I think it's a valid one. And so while we're talking about policing today, and we're talking about who's going to be our next leader, our entire government is focused on making sure that our residents have great opportunities to raise their families, to earn a good wage, to get a high quality education. And I am proud of the gains that we've made in many of those areas, including having our school district be the first one in the region to get more kids back in school post-pandemic than the others, to have high quality teaching, first class school buildings. And we are very committed to working on the school climate as well. I know the city administrator has already mentioned to you, we fought very hard to make sure that we could reverse a law that prevented us from having police officers in our schools. I've also tasked each deputy mayor with looking at everything in their cluster that they're doing that affects young people and safety, and coming up with new ideas to address those issues. We've been very aggressive at piloting programs for people who are involved in one of our TANF programs and our work readiness programs to make sure that we're actually training people for jobs that exist. For example, we just celebrated a 5-year anniversary of our DC Infrastructure Academy, where people are graduating from that training, making $50 and $60 an hour. And while the minimum wage, certainly you need more than one minimum wage job on average to sustain your family. We've also taken the minimum wage to among the highest in the nation in Washington, D.C. So while we haven't solved all the problems, we're very aggressive about investing in D.C. residents for schools, jobs, and job training, and we're going to continue to do that. But having said that, there are a lot of people who are working their way out of poverty, who are not violent, who are not using guns. And so I don't want to malign all of the law-abiding people in our city who are working really hard to improve their economic circumstances. And having said that, for the people who are finding cycles of violence, there are ways out. And we know that there are ways out, and we want them to find them, including contacting us about our Pathways program, who are working with the toughest of the tough and the people who have very challenging backgrounds to get in a decent and good paying job. And so we're going to continue to do that. And meanwhile, we have to have our officers have a good leader and the support of our communities so that we are safe.
Thank you very much for that question. A reminder, 844-881-1314, and press 0 to be loaded into the queue. We're going to go now to a question from someone watching online, and this is to Mayor Bowser. Vanessa, a DC resident. How important is diversity, equity, and inclusion as you search for the next chief of police?
It's very important, I think, across the entire government that we hire leaders that reflect our city, and that has always been my focus. And so what that means is that when we're recruiting, that we're going everywhere. We're going to college campuses, we're going online, we're asking people to tap into their own networks and send us great candidates so that we have a government that is reflective of our city. And we have done the same thing in the search. And I can ask actually the people who are closest to the search to speak to the lengths at which we go to make sure people know that we have a great job available and that they should apply.
Sure. So, I mean, one thing that I'll say is that our Metropolitan Police Department is one of the most diverse in the country, and we are very, very invested in making sure that it reflects our community. Our last police chief came through the cadet program, and so when you look at how the Metropolitan Police Department looks and how it's led, it really is reflective of DC. And so we are lucky that that means that we have many people who are interested in our what is very clear premier police force to lead it. And so we go to a lot of different legs in this search and others. We have posted on all the different sites, but really have worked with our major city chiefs organizations and the police and PERF, which is the police the research foundation, and made sure that we were connecting both in all of the forums and otherwise, but really a lot of, we believe, incredible messengers. We talk about them in our prevention space, but also in our police space of our officers, our chiefs, our former chiefs, really going out and helping to make sure that we have been able to attract the best candidate pool possible.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from Zenobia in Ward 8. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Hello, Mayor and esteemed panel members.
Hi.
I wanted to know if we could get more police officers to walk our neighborhood and maybe the guardian angels to cut down on some of the crime, because we have a reduction in police officers, and that was mentioned by the previous chief. And it would just be great to see more cops on the street and actually let them police, for crying out loud, because the crime here is getting out of hand. The seniors are afraid, and people are talking about moving out of the city, and that's not what we want.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we've done is we recognize what our numbers are, but it's still our expectation that our officers are in community. And so we, back in May, started our Focus Patrol initiative to help encourage and to make sure that our officers are out and walking and engaging. And so that's one way that we're increasing you seeing our officers. But I can also tell you, we recognize in our city that we have a lot of partners. That just today, I was in a meeting, summer planning with Metropolitan Police Department, but also with our federal partners in court social services and the CSOSA and PSA and others to help us increase presence. And one of the major points of conversation was how can we make sure that all of them are out with us so that you see us. And we particularly mentioned wanting our seniors to feel safe. And so what we're doing, and maybe one of the ways we're deeply fortunate in the district, is we do have so many different law enforcement entities and outfits to help us in this time when our Metropolitan Police Department numbers are down, to make sure that this summer and beyond, that you're able to see more officers in your community.
And I'd like to add, Lindsay, that another thing that I hope all of our residents are aware of is our cadet program. And I think Chief Conti's experience was like the best thing ever. If you're hiring young people as high schoolers and then they progress to do a job for over 30 years and retire as the police chief. Well, there are 100 opportunities just like that right now that we're offering to our young people who are interested in law enforcement, where we will pay them to be MPD civilian staff while they get their college credits. Then they can go to the academy and qualify to retire with a great pension at 50 years old. So as we think about having more police and having police walk the beat, we should be thinking about the young people that we want to make aware of this opportunity, and we are hiring. So please think about your circles of folks, and they don't have to be high school, age people. We're hiring older people too that can go directly into the police academy. So if you're interested in law enforcement, or if you know someone who's interested in law enforcement, now's a great time to call us.
And Mayor, if I could just add to give folks just a scale of what's happened to this program over the past 8 years. So when the mayor came into office, the cadet program was about 20 to 25 cadets. It was this niche, small program. Now, albeit one of those former cadets was at the time an assistant police chief, Robert Conti became the police chief. Today, we have well over 100 cadets, and we have openings. And it does give people an opportunity to be able to have a civilian job, get a free education, and then become a police officer. It is more than half female. It is over 80% of the cadet participants come from Ward 7 and 8. Almost all of them are from DC public schools. So it went from being a niche program to really one of the future ways in which we get the right kind of officers into the force. So to the mayor's point, if you know anyone who might be interested, there's still wonderful opportunities for folks to be able to explore a career in policing. And the chief of police has to be the chief recruiter as well.
Great, thank you. I want to thank the more than 1,000 people who are joined down the phone or online, and I'll just remind you the number is 844-881-1314, and if you press 0, we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Our next question is from Tom in Ward 1.
I would put my comments into 3 categories. The first one would be the new chief would really need to be effective at coordinating across agencies, in particular with the U.S. Attorney's Office to increase prosecutions for violent crime, and with the council to add some laws that would give the police the tools to deal with quality of life issues. Secondly, recruitment, which has been mentioned. I think the new chief needs to tough it out and stick with quality recruitment rather than going with quantity, which has been a problem in the past. And thirdly, I think we need a multi-agency approach, and I would call out the new Strategic Change Division program, which is putting trained crisis intervention people in cars with officers who can deal with problems in real time. And finally, I would like to call out the officers of 3D. Commander Bowler has taken over there and has done a really good job with less while connecting in the community. And the officers at 3D are more visible and accessible than they have been in a very long time. So keep it up, 3D.
Well, thanks for that great feedback. Specific and with solutions. Thank you for that call. And I agree wholeheartedly with the 3 buckets that were identified by the caller.
Great, thank you. We're going to come to Sandra next in Ward 8.
Hi, I'm Sandra Seegers in Ward 8. I believe the police should not be babysitters. Other agencies should do that. Somebody needs to make the council realize that they need to let the police be the police, and I believe we should promote from within.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. And just a reminder, 844-881-1314 and press 0 to be loaded into the queue. And I'll remind everyone, if you haven't already done so, please go to dcchiefofpolicesearch.dc.gov and you can complete the community survey. For our next question, we're going to go to Lisa in Ward 3. Go ahead, Lisa. Lisa, can you hear us? And while we're waiting for Lisa, I'll go to another online question, and it's directed at the mayor and the deputy mayor. Can you give us an update on the timeline and when you can expect to name a chief of police?
Deputy Mayor.
So we, like we have said, we are really fortunate to have a robust set of candidates and are in the process of interviewing. And one of the things the mayor says is that she will always appoint people as quickly as possible once she has the right candidate. And so in a position as important as chief of police, what's most important is that we present to the mayor a set of candidates so that she can make sure that who she has to nominate is the right chief of police. And so you can rest assured that we are working expeditiously because we recognize the importance of this position. And I don't speak for the mayor, but I know that she has said many times that she will absolutely nominate when she has the right candidate.
Great, thank you. Our next question is going to go to Lucia in Ward 4. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you. Great forum so far. I wanted to add to Tom's comment about the importance of opening up federal channels for the DC NPD department. In my case, for example, as a federal contractor, I suffered over $250,000 in personal fraud last year, financial fraud and sanctions fraud. and the downstream impact to my small business, woman-owned federal government contracting company was just devastating. So that cost me the ability to bring jobs into the district and to be able to afford the seats on the federal contracts that would have led to more higher quality technology and missile defense jobs. Not very many, but a few in the district. And the frustration I feel is that MPD has been very helpful and supportive of me, but the attitude that I've run into is that there's a reluctance to deal with issues like corruption or judicial perjury or financial fraud or Russian fraud, because there's the knowledge that whatever they send over to the U.S. attorney will just sit there. And in my case, it has sat there almost a year.
Great. Thank you.
Even when U.S. military investigators expressed interest, the U.S. attorney in the district did nothing about it. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, City Administrator.
First of all, I'm sorry you suffered that. Sorry that you were a victim of crime to that extent. So the chief of police, as much as we talk about the criticality of reducing gun crime, the chief of police also has a force that investigate and closes all forms of crime. So it sounds like you may have been a victim of crime that had a cross-national element to it. That includes financial crimes. And MPD does, in fact, work closely with federal partners when there are victims of crime. If there are victims of sometimes cyber crimes in which the bad actors don't reside in the U.S., and we have to work with the FBI to be able to close the cases. They do close cases. I hope they're able to close your case. But you do speak to some of the unique complexity of this role. You have to both one evening go to a community that may have quality of life crimes. The next night go to a community in which they hear gunshots each and every day. And then make sure we're doing our job in working with the FBI and federal partners to close financial crimes, which have as much of an impact on people's lives as anything else. So I think you highlight some of the complexity of the work that the next chief of police has to do.
And thank you again for that question. As a reminder, 844-881-1314 and press 0, and we'll try to get your question in the queue. Our next question comes from Morgan, also in Ward 8. Go ahead, Morgan, we can hear you.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Morgan Jamison. I'm the CEO of the Equality Chamber for the area. And I'm just curious, as it relates to the police chief, what his intentions, or their intentions would be working with such a diverse community, including queer LGBTQ plus business community and the neighborhoods in which they're concentrated.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so one of the key things that is true about our city is that we are a city that's diverse in every category. And so it's critically important that our police chief leads our force in a way in which we engage with all of the diverse populations, from our LGBTQ community to our elderly to our everybody in between. And so absolutely, that's critical and speaks to it is actually one of the richest things about our city. And so having a chief who understands that and who leads the force to understand and to work with the diverse populations is critically important.
Great, thank you. And if you haven't done so, Morgan, we invite you to go to dcchiefofpolicesearch.dc.gov to complete the survey, as well as everyone else who's watching and listening. And as a reminder, please dial 844-881-1314 and press 0, and we'll try to get your call into the queue. We have another question, and this is going to come from Debbie in Ward 6. Go ahead,
Hi,
Debbie.
good evening. My name is Debbie Steiner. I am from Ward 6. I have been working with MPD since 1996, and my concerns or questions would be for the new police chief coming in to make sure that they work to do a deep dive within their agency to make sure that it is working efficiently and effectively, to understand that the new hires that are on the force are not used to urban living, and the individuals in our community, so they are not as, those new hires might need some additional training in order to attack the issues that we are dealing with, and also to make sure that the new chief comes in with a fresh mind that will help us to move forward equitably, one of them words, and to make sure that and to make sure that the city and the community and all that are involved are working cohesively on one page, because with DC government and how large it is, everybody does not communicate. So a lot of things get lost. And we cannot have that if we're talking about, equitable solutions and helping our communities. So that's what I wanted to say. And thank you so much for having this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you again. Please dial 844-881-1314 and press 0 to be loaded into the queue. We're now going to go to Roddy in Ward 7. Go ahead, Roddy. Your line is open.
Hello, my name is Roddy. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Ward 7. I just would like to ask, what is the plan to get the youth under control in DC, and what is the plan to get the guns off the streets?
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Roddy. So one of the key things that, one of the key roles of the chief of police and what we've said is that we need a crime fighter. And so we recognize in that question that you're asking, what is the plan that we have now and what will be the plan that the chief comes into? And so one of the key focus of the Metropolitan Police now is to remove guns from the street. And we know that there are way too many guns, illegal guns in our city, and way too many people who are willing to use them. And so every year, MPD is increasing the number of illegal guns that they remove from the street. And certainly one of the things that has helped us to do that is our increased partnership with our federal partners like ATF and others. And so, we're going to do everything we can. In the past, we've offered rewards, and you'll see things like that because we need the community's help. Like part of this is, we always talk, it's a partnership. So we certainly need your tips and your help to help us get unlawful guns off the street. When it comes to our young people, there's a lot of things that we do, and we know that there's a lot of work to be done. And so, like I said today, I was meeting with the Metropolitan Police Department and lots of our partners across the ecosystem on the law enforcement side to make sure that all of our young people are engaged this summer. And so, we are very rich in our city to have many, many programs and opportunities for young people to be engaged. And we think that's one of the parts of it that's deeply important. And so whether it's summer school, summer camps, summer programs, SYEP, we want to make sure that all young people are engaged. And the other thing is, for our young people who are struggling, we are working with our agencies like DYRS and our partners in court social service to open up opportunities for at-risk young people. And so you'll see more of that, because we know that one of the key things we really believe too is that as we wrap around young people and their family, we will start to see a change. And so, so I'll leave it there.
And I just add, the question of young people, you do highlight where the chief of police is often on scene responding to a really tragic incident involving young people. But there's a large table of other agencies and community members that are and have to be involved in trying to shape that behavior. So certainly the schools are a part of that equation. Having activities at rec center that engage kids late into the evening and on the weekend is part of that equation. Making sure there are real services that deal with trauma that often starts early in life, that are offered to people both who are in the justice system and who are not in the justice system. So we've had a few themes through these calls of collaboration, and the chief is often the face of that incident But when he or she walks away from that scene, that person has to know that there's a dozen other cabinet members on the mayor's team who are fully committed to making sure all the other pieces that deal with some of the root causes are actively focused on this critical problem.
Thank you. We're going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions, and we know that many of you have questions. And again, we invite you to go to dcchiefofpolicesearch.dc.gov, where you can take the survey and also share some thoughts and feedback. Our next question is going to go to Sandra in Ward 7. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, my name is Sandra T. And I wanted to ask the mayor about helping, what we can do to help the chief of police is to put more officers in all 8 wards. That would help the chief of police a lot. Interacting with the neighborhood, people in every 8 ward. I mean, we should have a whole lot of police, and they should live here in the District of Columbia, not in Maryland, not in Virginia. What we want to do is clean up the district. So I think that we should keep our policemen here and move and have them to move into each neighborhood and each ward so that they can help and talk and relate to the people, and also go to the schools and teach the kids, just like the lady said, about what's going on in the neighborhood. If you see something, say something, give them a private number to call. They don't have to leave their name or anything if they feel like their life is in danger. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for that recommendation. And I'm just going to throw out here, because we've tried it before, but the time will come where we'll try it again. But one thing that we have used to incentivize our officers to live in DC is a take-home vehicle. And that may sound like a small thing, but what our surveys show is that young officers who have a choice between our jurisdiction or other jurisdictions, they sometimes make the choice based on whether they can take home a vehicle or not. And we have worked it into our strategy in previous years. Our take-home car program largely focuses on officers who live in DC. There is a budget impact to that. We have to have more cars available, because when they take them home, then another officer on a different shift can't use it. And I think we should try it again, Kevin. Because as we are, and Lindsay, as we are trying to recruit more officers, and we have a signing bonus, but this is also a way, as Sandra has mentioned, that it helps us to recruit more officers, but it is also a added presence in a neighborhood. So I hope we can count on you, Sandra, that if we make this budget proposal, that you're calling the council members and tell them the mayor needs this, the chief of police needs this to help recruit officers.
Thank you. Our final question tonight is going to come from Marquita in Ward 8.
Hi, how you doing? This is a great forum. This is Marquita Brown from Ward 8. I'm really invested in this because, I'm a native. But there are 3 things I would like to see, hopefully, in the future of our chief of police. Number 1, a chief who speaks various languages of our city. The one of our DC native culture, but also one who can enhance our city to be better, because we know that our city, one size does not fit all in each neighborhood, each person, or just in each individual. Number 2, I would love to see a chief who just shows up, not just when crime happens. I know commanders have to show up, but I would love to see a chief that just shows up to a spelling bee or anything like that. I think that shows good faith to build bridges and change trajectories that we don't get to see in certain parts of our city. Number 3, I would love to see our chief create those bridges that were once broken. I think when we do that, that level of trust that we can build back into the community, people have a safe space where they want to elaborate on what's going on personally in their lives. And the last thing, I would love to see a chief expand the youth outreach division. I think they're doing great work with our youth, but it's not the stories are not told. So I would love to see a chief that can focus on that, because those officers actually take youth from neighborhoods and they really spend time, take them out, and and it's making a great impact. So those are just my suggestions, and I hope that those are the things that I can see in the next chief.
All right. Thank you, Marquita.
Thanks, Marquita. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So thank you so much to everybody who called in, who has done the survey so far, who stayed on the line, who has participated. Your voices do matter to us. So if you weren't able to, if we weren't able to get your call today, you still have an opportunity to make your voice heard. There's a couple. One, you still have time to take the survey. And also, as we talked about at the top, one of the things that many of your fellow residents who took the survey said that it's very important that we have a chief who advocates for policies that allow us to have a safer city. And so we believe that. We believe the policy environment is important to safety in our city. And so the mayor's proposed the Safer, Stronger Amendment Act of 2023, Safer, Stronger 2.0, to fill in some of the gaps that we've seen. Common sense pieces of legislation that we believe, working collectively together, all of these pieces will help us to be safer. Proposals around increasing penalties for illegal gun possession and strengthening gun laws around Glock switches and all of these type of automatic weapons that we know that are causing so much harm in our communities. Giving our courts more discretion to hold people who may need to be out of community pre-trial because they have either previous charges or are just not safe for community. Dealing with some of the issues we're seeing in domestic violence by making strangulation a felony, and then also helping you to partner with us by increasing reimbursement and opportunities for participating in a private security camera program. And so we say your voices matter. And so there's a hearing on this piece of legislation on Tuesday, June 27th at noon, and we want to hear from you. And council needs to hear from you. And so we encourage you all across all 8 wards to sign up to testify. And you can do that at judiciary@dccouncil.gov, or submit written testimony, and or call your council members and let them know what you think, because we are here to serve you. So we appreciate you participating in this Teletown Hall with us. And if you have not, please be sure to take the survey.
Thank you. Mayor Bowser?
Thank you. Thank you for that call to action, Deputy Mayor. It is important that we make our voices heard. I am sometimes surprised at the number of residents that don't talk directly to lawmakers about crime, because residents talk to me a lot about crime. And it is important that you also engage in this process about a change in the law. So I want to thank you for that. I want to recognize my team at MODA and Steve Walker for working with DMPSJ on this search, because they're doing a lot of really good, hard work. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank Tomas Talamonte and our team and the EOM and the comms for working very hard at getting everybody together tonight on this call. It's very important to us to hear from you. And as you were asking questions, I was jotting them down, because there may be questions that I ask our candidates. So thank you very much. Thank you all.